There's plenty of times where, I show up at 6 a.m. ready to shoot. I fly one battery at like 3:45. We stay there until 6, and then it's like, okay, cool, you're ready to go home. And that's often.
Like I raced in 2018 for my world championship. This was way more stressful than that. Being on set is way more stressful than competing at the world level.
You will know when you get to that point. If you have to think about it, you're not there yet. You're like, I think I'm there. No, you're not there. Like when you get there, you'll know.
What's it like to be a professional FPV pilot? And how do you get to be a professional FPV pilot? That's the question that we're tackling in today's video. And I don't just mean like a pro YouTube content creator like me. I mean like a real professional on a major motion picture with a A-list director. Or maybe doing something like the Ford F-150 Lightning commercial. Or maybe you are a YouTube content creator and you just made the leap over to doing small films, commercials, and like Cinewhoop shots for local businesses. This is a side of FPV that a lot of people don't even know exists. So today, I want to take you behind the scenes by interviewing 4 of my friends who are professional FPV pilots at various levels in the industry.
I've really tried to stay away from social media because it's just for my own personal. Really quick, as I talk about not being on social media, I just want to put on my story.
All right, my name is Steele Davis. I go by Mr. Steele, and I have been a professional pilot since 2014. I started flying FPV in 2014.
My name is Paul Nurkola. I started flying drones in 2015, won a world championship in 2018, and used the skills that I gained there to find my way onto sets with drones.
Hello!
Tommy Tibahia, aka UMMAGAWD on the whole interwebs and things like that. I've been flying and building, I should say, multi-rotors FPV drones since I want to say early 2012. And have been flying commercially, in other words, being paid to do FPV gigs probably since 2015, but really jumping into the more professional cinema, commercial, high production world since 2018.
My name's Aaron CIOTTI. Everybody calls me CIOTTI. I've been flying FPV for almost 5 years now, and I've been a professional drone pilot for the past 6 or so months. For many, many years, I stayed away from turning hobbies into careers. And it kind of felt scary to do it in this case, but a lot of things kind of lined up, and I'm really glad that I was able to kind of take that leap because it's been incredible.
I'll just give you the caveat now. There's very few people that have penetrated through that are new pilots. Most of these people that are breaking through now have been flying 5 or 6 years. They were like OGs. And then you have the occasional person that breaks through that's newer. But still, most of them that break through are like 3 to 5 years of solid effort. And then they finally break through with either a viral video or something, and it puts them on the map. And then what they do with that viral video or how they go about making content after that video to bring more people in to continue that perceived, like, hey, this person's actually doing cool things, then that's where it make or breaks the particular pilot that's trying to become in a pro space, I guess, or become more of a pro, someone that's getting hired to go do jobs.
To get into the world of this, that is absolutely the start, right? Because your social media presence is your portfolio, right? But to get to what I've learned, at least, to get to the point of high production, commercial, big, well-known brands, at that point, it's who you know and can you prove yourself. Because it was a vast difference, Josh, when I went from doing these one-offs, to all of a sudden I'm doing something with Ford or Toyota, and instead of showing up to set and it was hey, here's 4 or 5 people that you're going to be working with. Holy crap, there's 300 people here with 20 semi trucks, and there's so many different departments, and I'm oh my God, where am I at? when you get to that level, it's going to be who you know and whether or not they decide like you're cut out to live in that world.
Instagram has really been the best spot for me so far. It's just such a quick platform that like everybody is on. It's a bit of a shift. We're all very used to trying to get ourselves in front of other FPV pilots, but this is totally different here. We're trying to break into the actual film industry. So things like looking for Facebook groups. There are typically Facebook groups in any given area for people in the film industry to hang out and chat. Getting your way into those groups.
So I would always say, no matter what, if you can, find a way to not do anything for free. Do it for something, even if it's just a little bit, but use that as a place to start practicing those negotiation techniques and that process of figuring out, hey, I gotta get paid for what I'm doing here. There is a time and a place where something is like, okay, this is a cool opportunity. There is no money here. There is no chance of there being money here, but it's going to create opportunities. Start to weigh that, start to measure that carefully. And I can do something relatively cheap or free for a team of people that I believe in. I think they can have success, and they're not necessarily paying me for that service, but the value add that I get far exceeds the amount of free work that I would have been doing.
So it's not like you can charge money in the beginning. You pretty much have to do things dirt cheap or completely free to show what you're worth and show your skill, and then you can become like in with these people as far as like how you're perceived. Maybe you're a cool person, you're not the best pilot in the world, but personality has a lot to do with becoming professional in anything. It doesn't necessarily have to do with direct relation to FPV.
I think what needs to happen is, first of all, you really have to have an eye for cinematography. So it's not, can you fly? It's not just a matter of like, can you fly, right? That is just half of the equation. And in fact, I'd say that's like a third of the equation. Because in that regard, to make the long story short, you have to have such good control of your drone that you need to be able to do exactly what you want from A to B at the timing that you want under pressure, right? Because you go onto set, there is no warm-up pack, right? I'm sure you remember when we go out to fly, it's like, let me just take a warm-up pack. Let me just kind of get used to things and kind of get into it. There's, you'd be lucky if you get that on set. So you have to be able to just plug in super cold and just do exactly what is being asked of you to do. Oh, damn, you're just going to go for it? You're not going to warm up? And I'm like, there is no warm up, man. You just gotta go and get it. So the type of flying and content that you put out has to be towards the cinematography style. And it is not about the tricks that you could do. It's not about the longest building dive that you can do. I mean, granted, there's a couple of freestyle things that where it lends itself towards the cinematography, but it's more because it's a crazy perspective.
To just kind of keep your head down and keep going and just keep pushing and keep building as much of an audience as you possibly can. So that would be that's sort of been my biggest thing, is just to be as patient as possible, which is really difficult for me. I'm not a very patient person. But if I want to do this, which I certainly do, I'm going to have to be. And it's, it's sort of forced patience, I guess, just to get yourself out of like FPV marketing headspace and get yourself into film industry headspace. Because it's a totally different world.
Oftentimes what you're filming is there's some type of action happening. And so there's timing involved and there's things moving, and you have to be able to get the timing right, and with a reasonable amount of attempts to be, considered good and to be able to get the shot, to be able to get called back again. And this is where I'll even just extend out where I would say that race pilots, I'm finding that a lot of race pilots are kind of finding their way into this. They're primed for this because they're used to the whole high stress environment, right? And I would say that if you're coming from the freestyle world, your leg up is that you're probably a little bit more on the creative side. So you probably have a little bit more of an idea of how to creatively come up with a way to show the environment in a way that speaks towards cinematographers. If you have freestyle experience and you also come from a racing background, you'll have the best, you'll have the best advantage coming into this because you kind of have some of these natural skill sets kind of built into you that you might not have already thought about.
Anyways, they called me and they were like, hey, we want to try some FPV shots. Again, this is like 2014. No one has used FPV at all for anything like pro at this point, as far as like a mini quad. Yes, Trappy had done stuff with wings and whatnot, and like DJI style NASA drones that look up and down, you know, like their TBS Discovery Pro. But as far as like a FPV drone, a 5-inch drone, I don't think anyone had ever done anything with a 5-inch drone. I actually offered to do it for free because I wanted to show them what it was capable of more than I really cared to get paid. Because honestly, at this point in my life, I had never made really that much money. And I was still just, you know, chasing this passion. Didn't really have any interest in necessarily making money at that time. But then that kind of built my relationship with GoPro and Red Bull. And then from that moment on, I got called not frequently, but more frequently than anyone else at the time to do GoPro Red Bull stuff.
To get into the world of this, that is absolutely the start, right? Because your social media presence is your portfolio. The moment when I got that call and I heard it was for Honda, specifically for like their bikes, I would say that's probably the first time where I was like, okay, this is a pretty big name, you know, and I'm flying, in my head, I'm flying these toys. So I'm like, this is crazy. And that was back in January 2018 is I'd say when that happened. And I was like, okay, I think I've just walked through this door of a new level of professionalism working with the bigger brands.
But my actual first jump into the world of commercial filmmaking didn't involve drones at all. It was, I want to make a video. I know that I have these skills from having worked on YouTube and doing this sort of thing. How can I start to convert that into like paid projects? And that kind of gave me that initial jump off point to say, okay, I want to use the skills that I have as a drone racer combined with what I'm trying to teach myself as a filmmaker to then go after these things. So, you know, my goal with starting a production company was, I know drones really well, but I don't know the production side. And if I go out and I just, you know, if I land some clients and I learn the production side, I'm going to be that much better equipped as a drone filmmaker to approach production companies and work on their behalf.
The worst case was I was supposed to go out and film a billboard, just simple stuff, just fly up to the billboard, kind of move around. When I got there, there were 4 cell phone towers right next to the billboard. And you know, so if I'd asked for the location, even just going to Google Maps, I would have been able to see that. I would have also been able to see the 50 or so power lines that were around there. Trying to get as much information before you get in the car, before you start getting all your gear ready, so that you can do a little bit of recon to make sure that the area is going to be safe. And also, it's going to force them to give you an idea of what the shots are. Also, if you're getting asked to do something that's unsafe, I've found it's pretty easy to just kind of say, well, you know, the FAA doesn't like that. They control the airspace. You can kind of blame the FAA a little bit.
In terms of gear, start with Cinewhoops. There are so many opportunities for Cinewhoops, whether that's, you know, just little ducted guys, whether that's a sub 250 or a Squirt or a Cinema or something like that. Like that is my moneymaker still today, right? I don't want it to be. I really want to be more on the cine lifter side, but people still see old Cinewhoop videos and are like, that is really cool. I want to see you do that for my company or my business or my production, whatever's going on. As you continue to graduate and you find the need for it, 5-inch FPV sort of style drones for filming definitely creates interesting opportunities, especially for higher speed, higher precision things. And then, you know, the top of the line right now for FPV, actually not even quite the top of the line for FPV right now, is cine lifters. So taking a red Komodo or a free fly wave or something like that and strapping it to a drone and hurtling it through the air. The top of the line right now is actually gimbaled FPV. We've seen a few different companies now be posting kind of their secret project that they've been working on. That's a big innovation, which is just a drone with a gimbal on it, but it's a big innovation. Build your product, buy your product based on the opportunities that you can get. And so once you start landing those clients that want to be flying a red Komodo, that's when you go get that gear.
I'm actually one of the few guys doing cinematic work that's still on analog. I think everybody's gone to DJI. I've had a lot of directors of photography and directors and producers that want to watch a monitor separate from me. You know, the spot where it's best for me to stand to fly from is not necessarily where they want to be. So that's actually been one of the things that sort of kept me from going to DJI so far, is that, you know, I can have, I have 2 different monitors, so I can give it to a director of photography and maybe a producer that's on site, so that wherever they want to be, you know, maybe they're giving the talent feedback or whatnot, they can have the monitor with them and not have to come to where I'm flying from. Typically, I can get 2 runs in on a 5-minute runtime, which is really good. It gives everybody a second to breathe. It gives me a second to think, talk to the DP or the AD, whoever I'm working together with. If I need more runtime, I do bring a couple of 4S 1300s. They'll get me 7-8 minutes. But the flight performance of the rig suffers a little bit. So I really dig the 4S 850s on that Cinesplorer rig. It's a really good combo. In terms of smaller stuff, I have done some fun work for a couple local yoga studios here, where I've flown a little 65 millimeter motor to motor, which is a 1.2 inch prop, tiny whoop with an Insta360 Go up on top.
I think the couple of differentiators is like analog versus digital, which I'll tell you right now, in my opinion, digital by far, just hands down, is the way to go. And it's for a couple of reasons. A, the performance is there. B, there's certain situations. For instance, most recently, I just did a car commercial where it was at a container shipyard. So that's lots of metal, lots of multi-pathing, and digital just hands down wins in that department. And then the second aspect is camera, right? So what are you shooting with? And I think this is, at least in my opinion, the easiest way to figure out like what level of production. And it's not to go poo-poo on GoPro. I'm not going to say that, because I think there's plenty of applications where GoPro is the most appropriate. But to be very honest, you know, when you're at the upper end of production and you're working with high-level directors and DPs, they don't even recognize the GoPro. In fact, the red Komodo is almost even at the bottom of what's recognized in terms of cinema cameras, which is like 99% of the case for my job these days. It is the red Komodo, in which case then at the very least, I'm running, you know, an X8 with 8-inch propellers on it, with a big like 5100 milliamp 6S pack. From the freestyle world, I remember there was a point in time where all I did was fly my Remix 5S, this payload, this exact weight, this exact prop, and if it deviated from that, it bothered me. You absolutely can't do that, because the payload will change from shot to shot. You know, the Komodo might stay the same, but the lens that goes on there might be different. Or maybe on this specific shot, they want to see that HD downfeed over to Video Village, which means now you have to carry another 400 grams in a video transmitter that wasn't on there before, you know. Or now we're taking this Komodo and we're throwing it onto a small Insider, which has like a 2-to-1 power weight ratio. You have to be able to jump into each of these without any kind of warm up and perform 100%.
But you need to know about the camera. And it's even more so when you're talking about not just the camera angle, but you need to know, like, are you doing 180 shutter? Are you putting an ND on? Are you running flat color palette? Do you know how to color grade later? Are you doing all of that? Are you not worrying about color grading? Is someone else doing it? Do you need to worry about audio? Do you need audio? Do you not? If you need audio, are you going to record the whining of the drone? Or are you going to go in and actually record the audio that's coming from whatever you're doing? So a lot of these people that are doing real steady shots are using audio based on what the environment is happening when they're filming the shot. And they can't do that with a drone running. So they have to have whatever they're filming happen multiple times so that they can get different places to get audio for that particular shot so that they can sub it in later. But so you need to know all of those things. You need to understand like what the production wants. Do they want that style? Do they want audio? Do they care? Are they going to have voiceover over it? What camera angle, depending on how fast you're going. Also, what size lens? Can the drone carry the lens? Do you need to worry about flight times? Do you also need to worry about field of view? Can you have props in shot? Do you not want props in shot? How much angle do you need to not have props in shot? There's so many little things that I think people don't realize about the camera side of it that you have to know, or you're just going to be getting mediocre stuff when you could be getting amazing things.
For me, as a drone pilot, there's a couple of things that happens during the scout. First of all, the director DP will have their vision of what they want to happen here. And so then they naturally ask you, can we do X, Y, Z? Right. So there's two things that you're looking for there. The first thing is can you do what they're being asked for? Because sometimes the thing that they ask for is just absolutely crazy. But then the second thing is legally, can you fly there? So this is where your FAA Part 107 comes in, because if you're within 5 miles of an airport, there's that to deal with. If there's floor ceilings that you have to be mindful of, these are all the administrative things that you have to file permitting for, et cetera, that has to happen before even any of the shooting can really take place. Assuming this all goes well, great. You get scheduled for the actual shoot day. And then the day before that, you get a call sheet, which simply tells you where you got to be at what time. Normally, it's just at the crack of dawn before light is even come out. So you want to talk to the first AD, which is the guy who's kind of running the show and kind of orchestrating everything. And you just want to get an idea of where your shot's going to be, what time you're expected. And the second thing you want to do after that is then you got to get set up, and especially when you're doing something with like a red Komodo, it's not just making sure your batteries are plugged in and you're good to go. You got to get with your first AC, who's really in charge of the camera. And his whole role is really just to make sure that the camera has the exact lens, the exact settings, the card is formatted, all of the configuration that happens in a cinema camera, which if you don't know, there's a lot. It's more than just exposure and your ISO. There's a whole lot more that goes behind that your first AC is supposed to take care of. So they need to know how long you could fly for. And then once you come down, how long does it take to do a battery swap, which everybody needs to be able to see this, right? So this is what clients look at. This is what the director and DP looks at. Basically all to determine whether or not you got the shot, right? At the end of the day, if you got the shot, you get to move on. If you didn't, you keep going until you get it. If you have a good AD, they'll be on top of letting you know when to, hey, just heads up, you're going to be up very soon. And that's when you're plugging in, you're making sure everything's going, the cards formatted, you got good live video so that everybody can see what's happening, all the way up until it's time for action. Director DP, often they're on comms with me so that I'm hearing what's going on. They'll give me feedback. We either go for the reshoot again or we go for something completely new. And then we come back, we land, we change batteries, somebody else handles that. While I'm talking to the director to DP, they're reviewing the footage. And if they're happy, then we move on. There's plenty of times where, I show up at 6 a.m. ready to shoot. I fly one battery at like 3:45. We stay there until 6. And then it's like, okay, cool. You're ready to go home. And that's often. And there's other times where if drone is, the primary cam or what we call a cam, then you're just on all the time. Then it's just back to back, constantly charging, constantly flying, constantly getting feedback.
We did this same shots about 50 to 60 times over 3 days. I did 3 different shots, 50 to 60 times, back to back to back to back to back to back to back every day. It's like 6 to 8 hours of same shot, same shot, same shot, same shot. Something would go wrong every time. And it was never, it wasn't always, it was not never my fault, but it was very rarely my fault. It was a lot of we got the shot perfectly, but the actor did a thumbs up and they didn't like the thumbs up. There's always, the client is always changing their mind after they say they want one thing, you do that thing and they're like, nah, we don't like that. Let's try this. But we want you to go faster here. And then we need to just slow down right here. And I'm like, well, to do that, I have to pitch forward. And they're like, you can't pitch forward. And I was like, well, I can't do the shot. And they're like, well, then are you a good pilot? I didn't say I couldn't do the shot, but this is what's going through the minds of people. It's like, you do realize there are limitations to this. You wouldn't hire a Steadicam operator to do this job. Well, you hired a drone pilot to do it, but then the drone has its physical limitations as well. I'm telling you what the physical limitations are. This is your option.
If you are hired by a company to be like if you're somehow magically hired to just go straight to a movie set, not through a production company, not through a drone company or something like that, and it's just you and your drone, honestly, don't take it. Unless you can find a way to partner up with a drone company or partner up with an FPV person with experience or a drone person with experience, because it is a very scary place to be. There are so many different moving parts on a set that you can't even imagine, right? You have to know who DIT is. You have to know who the video team is. You have to know the camera department, the stunt department, the drone department, because there's a different drone team there that was totally unrelated to what I was doing. You know, you have to be able to interact and be ready for the director, for the DP. You know, like, these are all just different roles that I knew a little bit about ahead of time, but like, so because I got to have this relationship with the visual effects supervisor who has been in the industry for 40 years, he worked on the original Matrix bullet time scene. Like, it's ridiculous. It was super cool. He helped me navigate the set. He brought me to DIT to say, you know, what camera name do you want it to be? What format do you want to shoot? What frame rate? What color temperature? All of these things that, like, I know what they are, but I need to know what they need to have set on the camera for this. You know, for the, you know, the 5 minutes that my drone's in the air, it probably costs the whole production $100,000. That's a guess. I have no idea. But, like, you know, there is an absurd price tag tied to that. And you realize that in the moment when the director says action. Oh my gosh. So now I have to fly this $4,000 drone with, you know, with a nice camera with, you know, that's not really designed to be flung through the woods is where we were filming. There's 100 people waiting for me to fail. The director is standing there in my ear saying, no, do this, do that, do it differently, do it faster. The producer is saying, we're done, we're out of time, get finished with this. And you're still expected to perform at the, like, the world-class level of FPV that you've been practicing to be. And if you're not ready for that, and you don't love that experience, that pressure, you might want to think about something else, because it was like, I raced in 2018 for my world championship. This was way more stressful than that. Being on set is way more stressful than competing at the world level. I'm going to swear on this. You can bleep it if you need to, but, you know, he's like, why is that fucking thing not in the air fucking right now? We're fucking losing light. Like, you got to get that thing up right now. And you're like, and again, you've got to be ready. You know, it is not because we were unprepared for it. It's just, that's the pacing. That's what happens. He's not angry at you. He's just like, we're going to get it now. We're going to do it now as fast as we possibly can. And you got to be prepared for that pressure, for that circumstance, and be ready to get it in the air. So, you know, once the drone takes off, easy peasy, right? You're just flying a drone.
I stopped doing it for a couple of years because I hated dealing with all the crap that you have to deal with when you're trying to set one of these up. So if you've gone through all the hoops and jumps and you're on your first job and you're like ready to set up, and just, you know, you got everything prepped, you're good to go. Hopefully you have someone else there with you, because working alone on set with a drone can be extremely daunting, especially if you're like a main camera. Like,
you know, it's interesting for me. 20-ish years ago, I went to school for TV radio, communications degree in TV radio. So, and then after that, over the years, I've done gaffer work and lighting work and a bunch of stuff on short films. I understand the hurry up and wait nature of it, right? You know, if I get my day rate, that's up to 10 hours. I'm certainly not gonna be flying for 10 hours, right? I'm gonna be on site, looking around, trying to find things to stay busy with, trying to find different lines, different little tiny things, being helpful in different ways. You know, having done a bunch of gaffer work, I can find ways where I can kind of help out here and there. As a communication major, this comes kind of easy to me, but it's really, really, really important to work as hard as you can to communicate with the other creatives there that are either telling you what to do or acting or, you know, whatever may be going on. Just being as communication heavy as you can with everybody else on site is really going to help out from a safety perspective and from a creativity perspective as well.
You know, the director, the DP, they'll have an idea of what they want. So you need to be able to execute on that. But in the event that they don't, then they turn to you and you become more of a DP role, a director of photography role, and they ask you, what, this is what's going to happen. What do you think looks good? So you have to have those two things. And then the third thing is you got to be able to do it under stress, because could be hundreds of people that are looking at you, making sure that you can get this done on time in the 1 or 2 takes. Otherwise, people aren't going to lunch on time. You know what I mean? And then it's kind of stressful, or you don't get the shot, and, you know, or whatever. Just anything. There's so many things that could happen when you're on set But the idea is that you got to be able to handle these things under stress, under pressure, and be able to perform. You know, you can't be taking 3, 4, 5 times to get the shot. You got to nail it. If you can get it in one take, you start to kind of make a name for yourself and people notice.
I want to say thanks so much to Mr. STEELE, Paul Nurkola, UMMAGAWD, and Aaron CIOTTI for agreeing to be interviewed by me and for giving me so much perspective and insight into how they went pro and how they succeed as a professional. I really loved making this because this is a side of FPV that I also don't see very much, and it was so insightful. If you're thinking about going pro, I hope that this has given you a much better perspective on how to succeed. And if you're just looking for a behind the scenes look at what it's like, I hope this has been really enjoyable to you. I got links to all these guys' socials down in the video description, their YouTube channels and so forth. And so definitely check out their content if you want to see what they're doing. But that is going to do it for this video today. Thank you so much to you for watching. Happy flying.